What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now this video is going to be the start of the review week, as I'll be going through each position and giving you guys which players to target. Now if you guys are new to the channel, basically what I do every preseason is I go position by position, detailing the stats of the best options at various price points. So I've given you guys a very easy one to kind of dip your toes into. It's going to be the goalkeepers today. Not many kind of options to kind of decide upon, but a very integral position in your FPL drafts. So hopefully this video either changes or kind of cements your option between the sticks, as I'll be going over the stats that help us select the best options at each price point. So if that's something you guys are interested in, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. Now the way I'll be going over these videos is I'll be going over different stats either per price point or comparing an insight to another insight to give us some more clarity on which players to actually select for our drafts. Now usually what I do is I go over kind of expected minutes or actual minutes played last season per game, but with the goalkeepers, the majority of them play 90 minutes every single fixture. So I'm going to skip the minutes per game kind of insight. Let's head straight into the FPL points scored per 90 minutes last season. Now this graph is going to be per kind of price point, and you guys can see some variation between the different price points. So on the far right hand side, we've got our premium goalkeepers, Raya, Allison, and Edison, and they put up some respectable points per 90 minute stats. They were outperformed however though by some 5.0 such as a Pickford or Nick Pope, and I do apologize, Leno and Onana just want to be together. They scored the exact same amount of points, and therefore the labels are coinciding with each other. I tried to change it around but it wasn't too successful. Big drop off for Vicario and Forshi for the Spurs goalkeeper, but you guys know they weren't keeping many clean sheets last season. Now the bracket I'll be looking at, and probably you guys will be looking at as well, is going to be the 4.5s, and that's not only because the goalkeepers provide massive value at a cheaper price point, but with so many options priced quite expensive this season, we're trying to find as much cash in the bank to spend. Now I want to give you guys a spoiler alert here. Unlike this graph that you see on screen, there's no standout 4.5 at the moment, but there are a few options that I think are worth taking a look at. Now I've spoken about this graph, and this might seem like Muric is the standout pick at 4.5 million, but when you do take a closer look, just understand that Muric played for Burnley last season and he only played the last few games. So when Trafford was benched, Muric came into the squad and went on an absolute banging run. He got so many FPL points at the end of the day, and that's why he's averaging about 5 points per 90 minutes, which is simply outstanding. He has had a transfer though over this transfer window, and he now plays for Ipswich. So let's wait and see if those stats kind of transfer. But other than him, we got Areola as the leading 4.5. You guys know that when he racked up those clean sheets, he got save points as well as bonus points, and he ended up with a great FPL points per 90 minutes. We then go down the list. We got players like a Sanchez, Petrovic. You guys know the Chelsea goalkeeper is a little bit up in there at the moment. Dubravka, but Nick Pope's back from injury, Neto, maybe an underrated pick. And we get to a popular option like a Flecken, who's currently my goalkeeper. Now another one I want to point out is going to be Henderson. Unfortunately, if you compare him to Flecken, a little bit of a drop off in terms of FPL points scored per 90 minutes, and he might be the number one at Crystal Palace this season. And Nottingham Forest goalkeeper Sells at the bottom there also doesn't look too strong, but I do expect Forest to improve defensively this season. Now I just want to shout out Matt Turner on the left hand side there. You can see not great kind of points per 90 minutes, but he is only 4.0 million, but please don't think he's going to start. He's currently third choice at Forest. But this metric is kind of just to set the scene. This is kind of actual points scored per 90 minutes. Let's go over a more interesting stat, which is expected FPL points per 90 minutes. Now I got this stat from Fantasy Football Fix on their Opta Stat Sandbox, and basically is how many points the goalkeeper should have scored or was expected to score per 90 minutes. Now one thing I want to point out is this graph might look different to the last graph, but the axes have changed. Not in terms of the x-axis, but the y-axis has had a shift. So the majority of these goalkeepers actually score a similar amount to the actuals. For example, Allison was expected to score slightly higher, 3.6 compared to 3.5, but that's pretty close at the end of the day. A major shift though can be seen in Edison, and that's because he concedes some low XG chances. So now you guys can understand why FPL managers don't like Edison at all, and it's the fact that he's projected to score more points than he actually does, and probably should. So just for clarity's sake, he's probably expected to score about 4.0 here, 3.6 in terms of the actuals, so 0.4 per 90 minutes is the difference. Reyes still remains the best 5.5 if you guys want to go there, understand that kind of logic. He's cheaper than a Gabriel or Saliba, but offers less attacking threat. I think though, for me, I've already said this, the 4.5 bracket is where I'm looking at, but in terms of kind of changes between the actuals and projections, not much has actually changed. So you guys can look kind of further into this graph, but as mentioned, the numbers are quite close. Just make sure your goalkeeper doesn't have too much of a difference between the two numbers. Like an Edison, that means they're conceding low XG chances. Now the stat I want to actually focus on in today's video is going to be the saves per 90 minutes. Very kind of self-explanatory, how many saves do these goalkeepers actually make per 90 minutes? And you can see this is why Murik was scoring so many points last season. Averaging about 6 saves per game is simply outstanding. Basically racks up 3 bonus points if the team keeps the clean sheet. Also shout out to Areola, another goalkeeper that makes a ton of saves. Understandable though with that West Ham defense being quite bad last season. And the kind of downside to this is if a goalkeeper is making a ton of saves, it obviously means they're conceding a lot of shots. So the chance of a clean sheet might be lower than a team that kind of concedes a few shots. Best example there is going to be Raya. He's now on the bottom right hand side. Makes very few saves, but that's because they concede a very few amount of shots. So you could be a classic 6-point merchant. Now the way the bonus points have actually changed this Premier League season is that they are favouring more attacking options. So the chance of your goalkeeper getting bonus points is going to be lower. So the very important thing I want to focus on is actually goalkeepers that score 3 or more saves per 90 minutes. As you guys will know, 3 saves equals a save point, and we're going to have to rely on those extra save points to get real value out of our goalkeepers. So I'm almost going to ignore the players below the 3 mark here, but luckily there's still a few 4.5s that remain. I'm seeing Areola there if you guys want to go for the more kind of high ceiling end of it. Jose Sarr might be an underrated pick, as well as Neto, Henderson for Crystal Palace, your Chelsea goalkeepers, and then the popular Flecken. So that's probably the core that I would look at in terms of 4.5 goalkeepers that make saves, but I'm going to add another stat onto this to give more clarity. So I'm going to put saves on the x-axis, I'm going to put XG conceded per 90 minutes on the y-axis, and XG conceded is basically the amount of chances that a team does concede to their opponent. So just think of XG but the reverse of that, and that's the defensive rating, and that's going to be on the y-axis as mentioned. Now what I want you guys to do is kind of map that 3 saves on your x-axis. Now every goalkeeper to the right of that line is going to be who we look at for our selection, and then we're going to minimize the amount of XG conceded per 90 minutes. So if we do that, you can kind of see that we get this grouping of Flecken, Henderson, and then Sanchez. Pickford's also there, but because he comes in more expensive at 5.0, let's ignore him for now. So in my opinion, the 3 goalkeepers I would look at is either Flecken or Henderson. I'm pretty sure Henderson should lock down that Crystal Palace number 1 slot, but there are question marks about someone like a Sanchez and a Petrovic. So if you guys don't know, the new Chelsea signed goalkeeper also comes in at 4.5, but there's no clarity at the moment from the Chelsea manager who's the number 1 between the sticks. So that's why for me, I'm not going to touch the Chelsea goalkeeper position at the current moment, unless we get clarity in the last remaining preseason friendlies. Now as mentioned, there are some other kind of goalkeepers to look at. For example, in Areola, he makes more saves per 90 minutes, but concedes quite a bit more XG. It should be a correlation between the two numbers. The more XG conceded, the more saves they should hopefully make, depending on the quality of the goalkeeper. So once again, my logic for the 3 save points and minimizing the amount of XG conceded per game, that results in 3 options: Flecken, Henderson, and finally the Chelsea goalkeeper, and that's probably my selections at the moment. Now just a reminder, these stats are from last season. If a team does improve with a better goalkeeper, for example, let's take Sels from Nottingham Forest. At the moment, they've got some pretty good XG conceded numbers, they're just not making as many saves. But let's say they do improve defensively or they're getting more save points, that goalkeeper has a higher potential, and that's why you can take a punt on one of these goalkeepers that has better fixtures than the kind of consistent ones. Now with your chosen goalkeeper, you have to think of your kind of more medium-term strategy. If you wildcarding in game week 6 or game week 4, obviously go for the player that has better fixtures, but if you want to select a more long-term approach, going for a Flecken or a Henderson might be worth it, even though the starting fixtures do look quite tough. All eyes though on the remaining Chelsea preseason friendlies. If you do get news of a confirmed number 1 from the Chelsea manager, that's probably where my 4.5 million is going to go. But comment down below, do you guys have a different approach to finding your goalkeeper? I've probably highlighted the most boring options: Henderson, the Chelsea goalkeeper, and Flecken. Who's holding down the goalkeeper position in your latest draft? Now more of these positional reviews will be coming up in the future days, so make sure those notifications are turned on. But this is basically going to wrap the video, guys. Hope you guys did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like if you didn't, subscribe if you have subscribed yet, and I'll be seeing you tomorrow for the Defender review video. For the time being, I'm Isaiah, it's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.